Hey there, welcome to the channel. So what a bloodbath today in the market. My goodness. All right, so if we look at the NASDAQ, we can see that really just got the crapola kicked out of it. Man, down almost 4%. So this thing is really extending to new lows. So just horrible performance in the market. Look at our SPY here, see what it's doing. It, as well got beat up down 3.2%. And it's extending the lows, basically kind of consolidation, just extending the lows. And so it's just getting the crap kicked out of it. Even the Dow Jones down 2%. So a couple things. One of the things we want to talk about is the oil. So oil got just the crap kicked out of it today, and that kind of sucks. So this is one of these deals where you kind of have this symmetrical pattern, right? And it's kind of coiling, and it breaks out, but it didn't really break out with much. And then all of a sudden, it's like failing. So it's like, gee willikers, man, just this is one of these possible fake outs. Now, what I will say is this: I still see like there's a trend line here, right? And so if for some reason it can hold this trend line and work its way up, so I'm not totally giving up on it, but it's very likely that this thing's liable to break down. Now, why is this thing breaking down? Well, the EU has been talking about banning Russian oil imports into the EU. And so they're having problem getting agreement from all the countries. So I believe it's Hungary or Bulgaria, or there's a couple countries that are really fighting this because they're just too reliant on Russian oil. And because of that, they just, it's going to be too painful for their economy. So I don't know if this is actually going to happen now. Is the EU actually going to ban Russian oil imports? I don't know. I mean, I think they could still do it, but if they do it, it will drag out. Now, it's kind of interesting as well. I don't understand, and I don't know if anyone understands, like for the EU to make a decision, do all the countries have to agree? Or can some of the countries like disagree and not abide by it? Or do they all have to agree because they're all going to have to abide by it? That's one thing I don't know. But it kind of seems that that's one of the potential ways out. That would be one of the only ways out, is that in other words, for them to actually do it, it might be the case that they're going to have to allow an exception for some countries. Another thing I wanted to look at really quick is Bitcoin. Look at that thing breaking down, man. The Bitcoin. See, this Bitcoin stuff, this is not, it's a speculative asset. So look at this thing. Look at this thing. I mean, it's broken below the 30,000 support. It's right at 30,000. The support was in the 32,000 range, and it's breaking right down through it right now. So this is actually very negative for Bitcoin. So in many ways, it appears that our Bitcoin is very correlated to the NASDAQ. So let's check that out. Yeah, so here's the purple line is the Qs. And you can see there is kind of a correlation. The Qs have been going up for the last year and a half, 2 years here, going up, and Bitcoin has kind of gone up with it. Now, Bitcoin is more volatile in that it kind of, like here, Bitcoin went up much faster and then kind of corrected and then came up again. But there seems to be some kind of correlation with it. And now on the downside, you see that the NASDAQ's coming down and Bitcoin's coming with it. So an interesting thing to note then, just looking at it. So this is the thing. We can just look at the charts and try to draw some conclusions. Now, there can be some deception there in that correlation is not causation, right? Meaning that, yeah, there might be a correlation and it may look like it's correlated, but it may not be. It may just be sort of coincidence. But in this case, I think we can look at this thing and we can kind of say that, hey, the Bitcoin is kind of moving with the NASDAQ. And so therefore, if you're buying Bitcoin as an alternative asset, right? So here's the concept. If you want an alternative asset One of the things that you would like in an alternative asset is for it to not be correlated with the general markets or whatever the other thing you're trying to have this alternative to. So Bitcoin is failing miserably. Looking here at a very long-term chart, 7-8 years, you see that Bitcoin's just ramping up, but it's also very correlated to what the NASDAQ is doing. So when you look at this, it's like, look, the NASDAQ going up, Bitcoin going up. So that's kind of what you see here. It's a very kind of interesting relationship behind this. And what I would say is, yeah, so looking at this, Bitcoin is not gold. Bitcoin is not really much of an alternative asset. In other words, if you're a tech person and you're investing in a lot of tech stocks in the NASDAQ or, or the ARK investments and all that kind of stuff, you're in a position where you're not really that diversified at all. So that's just something to kind of keep in mind. And we don't really need much in the way of theory about it. And I'm just going to put up here RK as an example as well. And I'm going to put it behind price. Yeah, and you kind of see this as well. So the orange is now the RK, and you can see they're all kind of correlated. Okay, so what you see is like RK really had moves that were ahead of the NASDAQ and ahead of Bitcoin a little bit. But, these big moves, they're all kind of moving together with it. So they're all kind of like taking some pain right now. So this is very interesting. So really, the market's really taken a beating here. And as a result of that, we're really in the bear market continues. Yeah, so looking at the weekly charts, the Q's just getting hammered, and man, it's just, we are in a full-on bear market. So don't let anyone tell you that. And the problem that it's going on with this bear market is we're just starting. This is the thing. This bear market is just starting. This bear market, when did it really start? When did it really start? Well, it started setting up in this range, right? It started setting up. You had this pullback to the moving averages. You broke through the important moving to averages and you couldn't make it back up. But right in here is where it started. Because when you came back up, it failed. And because it failed, this now is leading us into more declines. And that's a definition of a bear market. And you can see the behavior where you have these huge down days, you have these huge up days as well. That's all bear market behavior. So I think it's pretty clear right now that we're in a bear market. What it would have needed to do, so what this would have needed to do is it could have done a variety of things, but if it was just a correction, then it would have to return to that uptrend. And so it would have had to do something like this, come down, maybe it could have come down again. It somewhere would have to find that support and get back going on up on that trend. But it definitely has not done that. So we are definitely in a bear market. And it's really just like behavior like last week and really behavior like as we're starting out this week. Now, it's going to be interesting because we do get that CPI number and we're going to get this guy coming out on Wednesday, and it should show, based on the video that I saw looking at the nowcast data, it really should show an inflection. So that's going to be kind of interesting. So my take would be, and this is not financial advice, but my take is that if there's any kind of rally based on that, just a dead cat bounce kind of situation, if it does come up and we do get a rally on Wednesday because of that. So I would think that it's because the reason is all this is already in play. And so even if the Fed backs off a little bit, that's what's going to have to happen. The Fed's going to have to back off, but we still have pretty high inflation and they really do need to get it down. If you have your inflation numbers coming up and they just inflect a little bit, which is what we're seeing from the nowcast, they really got to make sure this keeps going down to get to some more normal level, even like 4 or 5%. And the issue I think will be is like, if this starts coming down and it starts going back up, and I wouldn't think that it would go higher, but I think that it, definitely could go back to sustained levels here. And that would definitely be a problem. All right, well, I think that's it for this one. Hopefully we'll have a more mellow day tomorrow, but I doubt it. Later.